Yes.
Okay, I do have 5:30. If we're all ready, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. And Director Halverson, would you mind leading us with the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And we want to mention that the purpose of this meeting is for the board to conduct board business. And the meeting is open to the public and is recorded, and you can listen to all past board meetings by visiting board docs through the district website. And this meeting is being presented via Zoom. It is also not appropriate for your audience members to interrupt board business or to ask questions during the meeting. Agenda items will be addressed as listed in the agenda. In case of emergency, please exit to the exit closest to you. And Director Roca, would you care to share our vision and mission statements, please?
Sure. Our vision is our community inspires and prepares each student to thrive. Our mission is in connection with our community. The Sequim School District empowers staff to inspire hope and provide flexible, innovative learning opportunities in a safe and respectful environment so that each student thrives.
Thank you. And Director Johnston, would you care to share our land acknowledgement?
Yes. The Sequim School District administrative and school buildings sit on the ancestral land of the S'Klallam people. While the S'Klallam traditionally come from one nation, history has led to the formation of three sovereign S'Klallam tribal governments: Lower Elwha S'Klallam tribe, located in Port Angeles, Washington; Jamestown S'Klallam tribe, located in Sequim, Washington; Port Gamble S'Klallam tribe, located in Kingston, Washington. The district's primary partnership is with the Jamestown S'Klallam tribe. Today, the tribe and district share a partnership that includes official consultation on programs and funding changes that may directly affect American Indian and Alaska Native students, as well as holistic service planning for students to remain successful in their educational journeys.
Thank you. And we'll go ahead and move on now to our approval of minutes and approval of agenda and consent agenda. Is there any objection to the approval of minutes, agenda, and consent agenda? Hearing none, we will consider those approved. And that's going to bring us to the public comments portion of the meeting. And without objection, I'm going to defer to Director Halverson to handle that portion of the meeting.
Nobody? Okay. Do we have anyone on Zoom?
If you're on Zoom, go ahead and use the raise hand function on the bottom of your Zoom screen if you would like to make public comment.
No raised hands that I can see.
All right. We will go ahead and close that portion of the meeting then. And go ahead and move on. And the next we have our, hold on, our student board representatives.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. To start off, I just wanted to give thanks for the opportunity of attending the Day on the Hill. It was a wonderful learning experience. To continue that, spring sports are starting. Track and field, golf, girls tennis, boys soccer, baseball, and softball will be starting next week on Monday, February 26th.
Good evening, everyone. After Valentine's Day is our Spirit Day at our school, and after singing games or other fundraisers that had made students busy, we are back to our normal academic days. The scholarship notebooks for seniors are due tomorrow at 3 p.m., keeping most of the seniors busy. It is also the time that we start counting down the days until graduation. While some of us are still waiting for college decisions and some others already know what is expected to come ahead. I also wanted to let you know that the senior class play is coming together slowly. The show dates will be from February 29th, excuse me, to March 3rd. And the times I believe will be shown at the Squim High School page on Instagram. Thank you so much. And that's all I had for today.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving right along. We next have our reports to the board. I believe we are starting out with Victoria.
Thank you, President Pickens. Good evening, Board. Superintendent Nichols. I am pleased to be here tonight to present for your approval our affirmative action plan. So, why do we have an affirmative action plan? Affirmative action plans outline the programs, policies, and procedures for proactively recruiting, hiring, training, and promoting women, minorities, people with disabilities, veterans, to ensure that all individuals have equal opportunities in employment. It's the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 that originally instigated the need for organizations with over 50 employees to put together an affirmative action plan. We need to redo them every 5 years, so that is what we're here to do tonight. I want to just read this paragraph because I love it. Instituting fairness and inclusivity, our affirmative action plan stands as a beacon, ensuring equal opportunities for all. By actively promoting diversity and eradicating barriers, we cultivate a culture of equity and excellence. Through deliberate measures and steadfast commitment, we pave the path toward a more inclusive and representative future where every individual's potential thrives, unhindered by bias. So, the responsibility for an affirmative action plan rests on all of us. I am the affirmative action officer, and I bring this to the superintendent and the board for your approval. But all of our supervisors and our managers to do the hiring are responsible for making sure that we are hiring based upon merit. And then all of our employees are also responsible to express the intention of our plan to make sure that people are in an environment where equity is thriving. So here's where it gets a little bit detailed. At the heart of an affirmative action plan is our analysis of how we're doing as a district. And does our workforce appropriately reflect the community in which we live? Do our students see themselves reflected in their educators? And I think that's really important, that when our students look out, they see themselves reflected back. So that's what we're called to do with this 80% rule. So I'm going to read this and try to explain it a little bit. This rule means that underutilization occurs when the actual percentage of females or minorities is less than 80% of the availability of that same demographic. If that ratio or percentage of females employed to percentage available is less than 80%, then there's underutilization of females within the organization. If the ratio equals 80% or more, then under the 80% rule, an appropriate percentage of females is employed within that job group, and the same formula applies for minorities in each job group. So it's really classes on, classes up. So what this means is if let me back up. We took census data from the available counties from which we could take it. And I'll explain what I mean by that. We took census data from Kitsap County and from Snohomish County and from the state of Washington. Because in order to determine whether or not we are meeting the 80% rule, we have to look at job groups to see how many females, how many minorities are occupying these job groups to make sure that we are meeting the 80% rule. Well, the census data does not extend to Sequim, Clallam County, Jefferson County. Our region does not break it down in job categories. We're not big enough. So I have to look at data from counties outside of our own and regions outside of our own to make that kind of a determination. We'll talk about that a little bit more, but that's where the data comes from. So for example, if 20%, if in a job classification of bus drivers, 20% of them are minority, then we should meet at least 16%. We should show at least 16% of our bus drivers are minority bus drivers to meet the 80% rule. Does that make sense? Okay. Okay. So when we analyze our data, what we have found is that the district is statistically underutilizing females in the maintenance trades classification. We have 4 gentlemen in that role. They've been there for a long time, and there are no women. So women are underutilized in that classification. When we look at minorities, we are underutilizing minorities in these groups: certificated administrator, teacher, educational support staff. These are our ESAs, counselors, psychologists, those kinds of things, bus drivers, office personnel, and maintenance trades. This is a chart that kind of demonstrates just how much we are or aren't utilizing or underutilizing. We'll talk a little bit more about this because part of what we need to look at, and we need to talk about why this is. Let's analyze this a little bit further. One thing we need to recognize, and I mentioned this earlier, is that there are unique factors that present themselves when reaching for our goals as they pertain to increasing the diversity of our workforce. And one of the things is, frankly, demographically, the city of Sequim is 55.3% female and 7.1 minority residents. Clallam County, 50.7 female and 13.6 minority. Sequim School District is 56.5 female employees and 13% minority employees. So when that kind of demonstrates that we are probably a little bit more aligned with our community than the data indicates, but I can't know that for sure because I can't break it down by job classification. But if we look at the broad picture, well, we're probably representing our community pretty well, but I think there's some work that we could do to make it better. This is just a little chart that kind of shows you Sequim School District, female to male versus Clallam County versus city, and then minority Sequim School District down the line. It shows you that we're not too far off if we're comparing ourselves to ourselves. But let's talk about this. Maintenance and trades, underutilized. It is a small classification with very low turnover. So we really haven't even had the opportunity to recruit for these positions because they aren't vacant. Certificated administrators, we fall short of our goal by less than half a person here. So we're pretty close to meeting the goal for minorities in certificated administrators. Teachers, that's our biggest spot for growth, is recruiting some teachers who are minorities, and that would be really good for us and be really good for our students. We'll talk a little bit more about how we can maybe do that a little bit better. Educational support, school psychologists, counselors, speech and language, pathologists, occupational therapists. These are very difficult to fill assignments. We're lucky if we get one candidate. So it's a difficult position to actually meet these goals. I don't want to say we take what we can get because we don't just take what we can get. We're very careful to make sure we hire only the best. But the reality is these are difficult to fill assignments. Bus drivers, expected minority utilization is 15%, and we're only at 6%. Again, this is a very difficult to fill assignment. We are on our way to a job fair. Actually, Don Hall, our director of transportation, is on his way to a job fair next week to try to recruit some more bus drivers. We are casting a wide net. We welcome all to apply. We train. And office personnel, expected minority utilization is 15%, and our utilization is 11%. Again, we don't have a lot of turnover in this group, but as vacancies arise, we'll continue to outreach to try to attract a wide range of diverse candidates. Okay, so what do we do now? Now that we know that we have a little bit of work to do in some of these areas, what do we do? And how are we accountable? What steps are we taking to improve representation of statistically underrepresented groups in the Sequim School District? So we do keep job history files for recruitments for the allotted amount of time. I think it's 3 years. We keep them so we can track and monitor who's applied. Have we been hiring based upon merit? Are we really making sure that we're not discriminating? The applicant flow data, this is something that we actually have not done for our applicants. We only ask demographic information once folks have been hired. And the reason we've done that is because we do not believe that we will not discriminate against folks who are applying for our jobs. The only problem is I can't pull back the curtain and see who is applying. So many organizations have decided to ask as a confidential question where only the HR department will be able to see it, ask demographic information so that I could run a report to see, are we putting our postings in the right place to attract the right candidates? The only way for me to know that is if I ask. It's a voluntary question. You do not have to answer it, but it could help us know if we are doing the right thing. Otherwise, we're just throwing the dice and hoping we get the candidates, and then they fill out the form and I run the report, and it's like, well, we haven't made any progress, but I haven't had any data to help me know where to put our applications. So that's something that I would recommend we start doing. Again, it's not something hiring managers would get to see. It's something only I would be able to get to see in order to analyze whether or not we're doing right by our community. And then again, statistics on recruiting and utilization and performance indicators prepared and disseminated. So I would talk to the managers and we would talk about, is there training opportunities that we can provide? What can we do to promote minorities and women within our community? So here are some supportive systems we would put in place to achieve our goals. Our job descriptions, it's very important that job descriptions are really based upon the qualifications for the job, that we don't put any language in there that would detract people, women or men or minorities or anybody in a protected class. We would need to be careful that our language does not exclude them. So we try to be very careful in our job descriptions and don't make minimum qualifications higher than they need to be, and really encourage people to apply if they're interested. Recruitment practices, just send our announcements far and wide. Diversity partnerships. I have partnered with Handshake. It's an organization that you can connect with colleges across the United States and put in your jobs. I've done that a couple times. I don't think I've had much success yet, but doesn't mean I couldn't in the future. But it's a way for us to extend our reach beyond our area. And then careful employee selections, which I feel really good about. We have very good instruments and tools to make sure that our selections are based upon merit. And I feel strongly that we are making good decisions in that regard. We have look-fors, we have expected answers and things like that. So once this plan is approved, it will be available on our website for viewing. And that is all I have for you. Do you have any questions for me?
I just have one question. When we're looking at, you said going to job fairs and making ourselves attractive for a wide range of applicants, isn't part of that is also not just selling the school district and the job, but also selling SQUIM as a destination, as a town for, and do you have that as part of your sort of
We do.
repertoire?
It's a fine line that we like to walk, because we have found sometimes people want to come to SQUIM because they like to hike and they like to kayak, and maybe they don't want to work, but they want to come here. So we do walk that fine line. We do want, I mean, SQUIM is an amazing place. It's beautiful and it does attract a lot of people. And we have some amazing people who have come to us because they love the area and they're hard workers. And we're so fortunate to have them. I'm just thinking of our most recent custodian that we hired. He wanted to come to SQUIM, and we're like, great, because you have a lot of experience as a custodian and we're going to snatch you up. So that's a win. That's a win-win. So yes, we want to capitalize on our assets, and then but make sure that they don't just want to hike and kayak.
Thank you.
If I could add to that, we are working on our website. We have a website host that we've had for years, and you can refresh that website so that you have a new cover, organize the tabs, and we recognize that there are other districts that are utilizing their web-based recruiting quite well. And so Victoria will be a part of that web redesign as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Victoria, I had a quick question. On where it talks about, I think it's page 8 and page 9, where it talks about the different factors. Are those, I was looking, I didn't see paraeducators listed on that. Is that because we are above the goal with paraeducators, so we didn't list them on those two slides?
Yes. So with paraeducators, we meet both the percentage for females and the percentage for minorities.
Oh, okay. All right. Excellent. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And those percentages are based on kits at Sammamish in Washington.
That's correct.
Although you have some feeling for local numbers, but they're not official.
They're not official, and we have to use the official numbers.
But we seem to be in, do we do any checking, like compared to Port Angeles?
I didn't compare us to Port
Angeles. They're in a similar area. I just wondered if.
Yeah, I have not checked with Port Angeles.
But it sounds like, I mean, all my questions you answered. Because I could see where if my experience has been, if we do this wrong, the marginalized category folks will let us know. So, you know, it sounds like we're doing it pretty well, and we're making a good faith effort.
We have room to grow. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have our finance and enrollment report.
Hey, good evening. All right, I'm presenting budget status reports for the month of January. And we'll look at our fund balance report first. Shows all 5 of our funds. All right, as you can see, our general fund for the month of January, ending fund balance is at $834,789 this month. Capital projects is at $3,867,948. Debt service fund remains unchanged at $74,804. Associated student body is at $521,501, and transportation vehicle fund also remains unchanged this month at $1,589,520. And always for the month of January, Clown County Treasurer's Report does not push forward interest on any of our accounts, and then they catch up after January. So because there is not any activity in debt service fund and transportation vehicle fund, that's why they look like they're changed. All right, let's go to general fund expense summary. We can do this one first. This is just a breakdown of January expenditures, and it's broken down, like always, certificated salaries, classified salaries, benefits, supplies, materials, purchase services, travel, and capital outlay. And you can see that between our expenditures and our encumbrances, we're at 89.23% expended of our budgeted expenditures for the 23-24 school year. And so keeping in mind that most of that is salary and benefit, it's encumbered. So that's why it looks like that. This is just broken out a little bit more detail. This really just encompasses our revenues and our expenditures for the month of January. And can you make it a little bit bigger, Tracy? I didn't print this one. So our actual revenues for the month of January are $3,379,038, and our expenditures at $3,654,973. You can see it's a difference of a little bit less than $300,000 more expenditures than revenue collected for the month of January. And then clear over to the right, you can see that 89.23% expenditure, so that they match up with the other report you just saw. Our enrollment for the month of February, so the very first beginning of the month is enrollment count. So February count is at 2,570.81. And that's with running start, so it's actually 2,511.28 with not counting running start. And our budgeted enrollment was at 2,548.3. So we are off our targeted enrollment for budget 37.02 FTE for the year, and that's down about 5.5 FTE from January to February. And our ending fund balance percent is at 1.73% for the month of January, knowing that the target is 4 to 6% by August 31st, 2024. Any questions?
It looks like we lost a few students. Are they being tracked? I mean, am I right?
Yes, we do track the students who are departing. So each building is aware of the student's departure and why. I'd say most typically the conversations that I'm having around that are with the high school. We have a number of students who depart because they may have completed a program. We have students who depart because they might choose to move into running start, for instance. We then have students who are choosing to depart for other reasons and leave our system, whether that be they're selecting something else like a different alternative environment, ALE, or they're moving away.
And just to be clear, as we talk about the budget, like the running start people, we receive money for those students, but it passes through us and goes directly to, most cases, Peninsula College.
Correct. That's right.
Yeah,
so
the running start remained unchanged from last month to this month. Is the same. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I believe now we are going to move on to our first 90 days in capital projects report.
So good afternoon, Superintendent, Board, Student Board, audience. Good to see you all. Thanks for having me here today. I want to go over my first 90 days in the district and the accomplishments of myself and my staff and colleagues. But before I do that, just for the record, I'm now well into my 5th month. I've seen a lot, met a lot of folks. I think we've made some incredible progress just in this short 5-month period of time. A couple shout outs I wanted to say specifically out of the maintenance group. I want to be really enthusiastic about this, or as enthusiastic as you'll ever see me. We, as of last week early, we have cleared all of the backlog work orders from the system. We finally baselined about 4.5 months into my tenure here, which is a major accomplishment, considering the fact that there were all about 120 or so non-project related backlog work orders in the system. It's fixed this, replaced this, help me with this. Those have been cleared. So to put that in perspective, the group has to do their escorts, their special projects, their standard maintenance, their, oh my gods, their corrective maintenance, and still clear that backlog. So they've worked very, very hard, and I want to commend them on that. Custodians. Many of you may not know this, but our custodians are only required to work 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. But we have custodians within our midst that are so dedicated to the district and their community that they come in on the weekends and they cover community events, and they'll cover school functions at multiple campuses, clean up after our students and our teams are done. And it's time taken away from their families. And yes, they do green sheet. Yes, they do make the overtime. But at the same time, it's time taken away from their families, and it's time taken away from their weekends. They don't get that back in the back end. So I want to commend all the custodians that help us on the weekends and on holidays, and even after hours when we have issues, and thank them very much for all their help. And lastly, you'll hear me talk about the contents of this 90-day report and the items and the activities that are occurring post 90 days. None of these things would have been possible without the cooperation of a very competent and capable administration, the support of the board, of course, and my other colleagues in crime. So think about. So they're all a big part of our success, and also the principals for their collaboration and cooperation as well. So here we go. So again, this is Mike's first 90 days, which spans from roughly Labor Day to the end of the first week or so of December. Lots happened since December, obviously, but we'll get to that in a moment. So anyway, completed general staff support and oversight activities. And this is all based on a 90-day plan that I gave the superintendent prior to my arrival. And these are all the items that we've completed and are working on in the meantime. We established a safety program with the following personnel protective equipment, otherwise known as PPE, and training. Lockout, tagout, which is the training, the methodologies, the behaviors, but also outfitted them with the locks, the tags, the hasps, the devices, and the master logbook that we need to ensure that we're compliant with OSHA. They use it, they're trained on it, we use it every day. We tag things out, we lock things out. They work very safely. And I'm very happy that, that our staff has adopted this and is compliant with it. Safety shoe and safety glasses requirements, same story. It's a requirement, and they do it, and it's great. Fall protection harnesses and lanyards. Something new to the group is the use of fall protection harnesses and lanyards, especially and currently only in the scissor lift. It's a very specific application. So they were trained by yours truly on how to wear, inspect, care for, and operate more or less the harnesses and the lanyards, the do's and don'ts. They've got handouts, they've got hard copies, and they've taken vector training on the on fall protection for scissor lifts, which involve the lanyards. We established, and thank you, Victoria, for being a great partner with this. We established virtual training technology and a space for training topics that are not available through Vector. So there's always going to be some training that our Vector group doesn't offer us. So we have reached out to other organizations across the pond and whatnot, across the sound, and tried to find some, or we have found some trainings that we can do virtually at a very low cost, but we had to establish a place to do that. So we did so in the maintenance conference room. I want to be clear, we're doing ongoing monthly safety training, including scissor lift operation, hazardous communication, otherwise known as HAZCOM, and chem reactions. We've conducted shop and worksite safety walks to identify and remedy immediate hazards. Found more than one, remedied more than one. We instituted monthly one-on-ones and all hands meetings with staff. We collaborated with the principals at each of the campuses to ascertain and remedy immediate needs and identify project requirements. Some of those requirements have flowed through into the capital levy projects that are either in process, in design, or in construction now. Some of those projects were completed in the last 60 days, with some projects considered for the next funding initiative. We conducted multiple meetings with local law enforcement and fire departments to gather data relevant to inspections, NFPA, IFC compliance, otherwise known as fire protection compliance, expectations, and support. And I'll tell you, Sequim Police Department and Clallam County District 3, and even our health department have been fantastic partners for us. They've been very understanding when there have been defects, if you will, and or issues to remedy. They've given us time to do so. And we've communicated back to them that they have been remedied. They've been kind enough to come out and double check for us. So it's been great. It's been a great partnership. We conducted multiple orientation meetings to capture levy funded construction progress and plan the path forward for immediate construction needs. That's a fancy way of saying that the project team of Wanaha and the constructors and the designers and the district have been back to back to not only get these designs into construction, but to get the funding for the design before we go to construction. It's been a very methodical, thoughtful process that we've been through over the last 5 months to ensure that the projects that we are bringing to bear today are the immediate needs, high priority projects. And you've heard me say this before, it's protection of life and property. Those come first. I'm going to stop at the end of each slide in case you have any questions. Please let me know if you have any questions at the end of each slide, or excuse me, slide, and I'll pause. All right.
I got one just for your safety walk-throughs and so on, and then working with law enforcement, fire department.
Yes.
Do they on a regular basis tour with you?
Yes.
And do we have a program that gets a chance for all law enforcement, all fire department people to tour our buildings? With the idea being, if they have to respond, it's not the first time they've walked into that building.
By program, you mean, a
plan.
Yeah, a plan or schedule.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that the annual schedule is not set in stone. But when law enforcement, especially Sequim Police Department, asked me during the Boys in the Boat field, we'd like to walk around and look at your campus, we oblige them. So that has been done, and Clallam County District 3 has also been out here, and the building inspectors have also been here. So, but to your point, it should be an annual event, at least, if not a semi-annual. And maybe in the case of multiple discoveries of issues that we have to deal with, maybe it should be quarterly. Mm-hmm. I think we're still feeling that out. I still think we're making a determination on how much of their time we require to ensure that we're a compliant, well-running school district when it comes to the protection of life and property of our students and educators. That
It was just a concern that they're reporting to a building for the very first time for a person with a medical emergency, and they don't know which hall to go down, which way to turn. Hopefully somebody meets them at the door and leads them, but sometimes that's not always the situation.
I would agree, especially for law enforcement. For better, for worse, our local fire department knows our campuses very well, thanks to our antiquated fire protection systems that continue to alarm and cause the ad hoc tours to occur. But nevertheless, I concur with what you're saying, sir. We initiated $262,000 in ADA improvements at the district office and Sequim High School. There's more coming. Reviewed preventive maintenance performance. We created PM schedules for the HVAC at the high school, the middle school, and at Helen Holler, to be specific, and completed all the initial HVAC PMs at all campuses by the end of 2023. And for the record, the middle school and the high school are on their second rounds of PM now. So we're gonna, just to be clear, not to belay the issue, middle school is gonna keep going, but the high school equipment's going to be removed and replaced over the next 5 to 6 months. So they are seeing their last PM regimes now. We collaborated with the grounds team to improve campus landscaping, and I can't say enough about our groundskeeping crew. In case many of you don't know this, it's a two-man show for the properties that we have and the expanse that we have. Those two gentlemen do an outstanding and amazing job with our campuses, and they stripe all the fields too. So, but to give them a little credit here, 4 large projects: destructive tree removal here on this campus, debris pile removal that was behind Helen Holler, softball field gravel additions next to the new concrete that was poured to remove the trip hazard, and bark replacements all around the high school and middle school are complete. So again, two-man crew. So they do the projects and they do the upkeep. And they're also our part-time painters and our part-time roofers. So they're pretty amazing. Environmental and sustainability. Now the AHERA recertification, if none of you know what that is our asbestos reports that we keep and have to have recertified every number of years to ensure that we know where it is, what it is, and so on. It's basically an inventory, but it has to be certified by a certified inspector, essentially. That has been completed. Satellite accumulation, the site identification, resource conservation, RCRA compliance in the storerooms is also complete. Trash removal from the campuses is now being contracted, and the legacy trash handling equipment is being sold. We collaborated on a donation offer to replace 420 feet of south fence at Gray Wolf Elementary. We're optimistic that construction will begin in the next 30 to 60 days. Lighting retrofit assessments were completed on all the campuses. Return on investments range from 1.5 to 5 years, depending on the site. And of course, that depends on our initial investment. We are pursuing grant possibilities to fund these initiatives. A complete electrical survey of the high school is completed as part of the HVAC project. That survey will inform and does inform load addition decisions and future expansion needs. That's a really fancy way of saying, now we know why we can't add any more outlets. State of Washington pressure vessel inspections and certifications are complete. State of Washington backflow preventer inspections certifications are complete. 5 additional time-critical immediate need Levy funded capital projects were initiated, awarded, and are underway. High school HVAC project I mentioned, Helen Holler Elementary sewer lift station replacement design is underway. Helen Holler fire protection control system replacement design. Gray Wolf Elementary septic system refresh, which is now at about the 85% mark. One more defect to fix, and we'll be calling for inspection and notifying the health department that that is complete. District-wide building management systems replacement, that is otherwise known as the BMS. The pre-construction meeting occurred last week. with Mr. Bowe and his staff also present. So we feel good about the direction that's going. We also feel very good about the fact that this will follow on and coordinate well with the HVAC replacement, which was the intention. Projects in process are scheduled to start near term. The gym ADA improvements, it's the doors to the gym, which has taken a little while longer than we'd like it to because of submittals going back and forth and back and forth. Come to find out, our gym's doors are not easy to replace because what you see is not what's there. It's basically concrete. It's a long story, but the measurements took a while to finalize because it's the contractor's responsibility and risk, not ours. OPA HVAC phase 1. Ned's got ductwork on his roof now. 3 portable HVACs. Excuse me, phase 1. 3 portables HVACs replaced, otherwise known as barred units. And the rooftop ductwork has not only arrived, but is, like I said, is now on the roof. And the gym's HVAC will finish by the end of February. We are lifting units onto the roof this weekend, finally. Phase 2 starts mid-March. So we're anticipating first week, early second week in March to receive the balance of the HVAC for OPA. As soon as we receive it, we'll lift it into place, remove the old stuff, commission what we have. Within 45 days or so, we should be substantially complete and commissioned, start up and done. The CTE air compressor and security fence replacements, those are in the hopper. My group's going to do the CTE air compressor. Security fence took a while to get a contractor, but Puget Fence is now on board with us. We've issued a PO, just looking for timing. District office construction is underway, as you can see. Project is 35 complete. 35% was last week, Wednesday. By the end of this week, by the end of the weekend, we're probably in the neighborhood of low 40s complete now. Good example is if you want to take a walk across the parking lot, if you feel like it tonight, you can see the new ADA stalls that were poured in the high school parking lot and in the district office parking area. So I wanted to give the board sort of my outlook on a very, what I call a quick SWOT. It's just something I do very quickly, and SWOT just happens to work for me in this particular case. The strengths we identified, or I identified, this is not a we, this is Mike, is that we have a fantastic team of knowledgeable and dedicated personnel led by an excellent administration. Okay, we have great leadership. We have collaborative leadership. We have communicative leadership. We have passionate leadership. And we're blessed by that. Levy funding is making a significant impact on the quality of life of the students and educators. True story. If you're protecting life and property with in-kind replacements, the HVAC at the high school, myself and Wanaha in particular have swore up and down this will be the last winter that our students on any of our campuses have no heat. Okay, that is our pledge. We have expansive real estate for expansion, replacement of facilities when that time eventually comes. Some of the weaknesses we had, lack of long-range planning, thus a lack of narrative priority determination for bond needs, facility recapitalization. I don't think it's a big surprise to anybody. We are working on it, and I'll get into that in a moment. Lack of an updated continuity of operations plan, otherwise known as COOP, and emergency communications plan, ECP. Again, a gap that we recognized. We are working on it actively. Lack of structural seismic engineering assessments on certain facilities, such as the track, transportation, district office, maintenance, auditorium, and the gym. We are going, as I said in the previous statements, we are going to pursue grants to have these seismic studies done. So it guides us and allows us to get a consultant to tell us whether our facilities that we're looking at into the future can be retrofitted. Can they be retrofitted? We don't know for sure. So These are things we need to know before we start talking about wholesale replacements. Opportunities. Levy funding's positive impacts on reactive corrective maintenance and the subsequent pivot to preventive condition-based maintenance. Corrective maintenance, reactive maintenance has dropped by 25%. It's my run. We still get the phone calls. Got a leak. Got something broken. Key stuck in a lock. But yes, but it's dropped by 25%. In the grand scheme of asset management, it's a big number. It's a lot of calls we're not running and fielding. Third-party expertise will fill the stakeholder operational assessment skill gaps at the district and properly configure what we have and will keep. And that goes back to the same sort of statement I made about seismic studies. And we need some third-party outside expertise to give us some direction and try to fill some gaps or subject matter expertise gaps that we have on staff, so we understand what part of a long-range plan should be tackled first. It's not always apparent. With strategic asset management plans, it's not always apparent until you start getting into it in writing. It's always nice to have an outside pair of eyes or a third pair of eyes sitting at the table and say, "Have you thought about this? Have you thought about this?" Continued diversity in engineering design firm awards will prevent the all-in-one basket dependency situation from reoccurring. My colleague Bo knows about this. We had an engineering firm working for us prior to my arrival, and partially into that tenure that wasn't performing. They had too much responsibility. And when we ceased using their services, we realized that low voltage, some of the high voltage, and some of the other projects that are on the levy list were on their docket. So Winaha and I are looking to diversify that award base. Okay, that's why we split the designs out for Helen Holler's lift station and Helen Holler's fire protection. It's a prime example. Okay, instead of going pure design bid build, spinning off the design and diversifying that engineering base and design base. Expand the maintenance and custodial safety training and PPE distribution to include roof anchors, ladder fall arrest, CPR training, RCRA with chemical interaction awareness, and chem storage assessment management. That's a big bite. That's a lot to do in 1 year, but we like having more work on the board to do than we can do. So we're going to concentrate on quite a few of those things. And finally, threats and risks. Lack of information on level 1 infrastructure. And what that means is we know that building over there has sanitary sewer. We know it's serviced by sanitary sewer, but we don't know where it is. We have a rough idea based on circa 1967 prints on where it is. So if and when we have to start digging to try to fix something, it's information we need to have. Level 2 infrastructure, this is distribution on AP asset base. In other words, it's a fancy way of saying inside the building where the wires go, how they distribute the wires. Are they up in the attic or in the foundation? In some cases, we don't know, because the codes back then, when this was constructed, allowed for the contractor to make that decision, but the prints weren't read. So it's a little bit of a Where's Waldo exercise when we have to chase down electrical faults, even water faults, drainage faults from sinks, drainage obstructions and so on. Yeah, it's interesting. So we do recognize that there's a lack of information there. We'll talk about solutions to that here in a moment. And then finally, level 3 infrastructure. And this is asset accounting, okay, down to the component level, where we're talking about fixtures and devices. So this is not fixed equipment. These are level 3 devices, which is technically FF&E. Logistics, receiving, and distribution. It's a weakness for us. Because we don't have parts rooms. We don't have distribution. We don't do things by issue. We DTO, otherwise known as direct turnover. All the parts we get in, they're almost immediately used. So spares, we don't have. But even if we had them, we are challenged on where to store it, at least secure. So that is one of the risks that we carry. Lack of construction quality control plan or resources to affect the owner's acceptance requirements. I state an example there, which is certainly true, but at the end of the day, you're looking at the QA department. Bo is the QA department. We shouldn't be, for obvious business reasons. It's the fox watching the house. We're good at it. We're honest people. We have integrity, but at the same time, we should be. And in large scale capital project programs like we see today, there's typically a third party QA/QC outfit that is hired along with capital project managers to come in and look at punch list items and discover work not done according to the contract and or the prints at the tail end of a project. Anyway, something to plan for the future. Lack of documentation for assets, total ownership cost, material control, receipt inspection, MX performance data, and asset performance and reliability metrics. That's all the data I talked about when I first got hired that we're collecting today. We just don't have a lot of it right now to make any particular determination on how the assets are performing. A 25% reduction in reactive corrective kind of speaks for itself, but it doesn't get granular. What asset class is performing better? What real property is performing better? Which campus is performing better? I can't tell you that right now, but it won't be long. Lack of a CMMS, computerized maintenance management system is what that means. To properly configure asset-based work control, work classification by failure class, and material issue. Bo administrates a wonderful IQ ticket system. That's exactly what it is. It's a work order ticket system. It's a work order management system and classification system in a way, but it's not a computerized maintenance management system. So there are features of a CMMS that are included in the system that we're using today that we need to consider in the future. So we're looking at those things. All right, last one. So the question, how's the district responding to the facility-related challenges? District leadership broadly has engaged in a national firm to create long-range asset planning with associated pathways that provide the recommended strategies for growth. I don't feel necessarily comfortable revealing who that company is in this particular forum. It's a company I worked with at Denver International. They're a very large nationwide firm. They're a Fortune 100 company. They do this. They do strategic planning on the strategic asset management side of the business and on the long-range facility replacement side of the business based on facility assessments. So that last term I just spoke of, that is something that is on my docket to get done so we can engage a national firm to help us interpret what does that mean, from the education and real property funding environment perspective. We are actively working the COOP ECP stakeholder and steering committees. We form those to create these plans. And there's two tiers. There's a strategic steering committee and then there's a stakeholder committee. So there's an embed decision maker level, and then there is the stakeholder community level. So we make sure we capture all the ideas and all the needs of the folks that we're working with here in the community. Seismic and other engineering assessments will be considered in the 24-25 budgeting process with grants as a primary funding source. That's what we're chasing. We're successfully executing capital projects that will prevent additional decay to the facilities and disruption of the students and the educators. We've applied for grants pertaining to establishing and replacing safety systems. This will augment the district's annual safety and security budget. We are eliminating the infrastructure information risk by ensuring that all capital projects include constructability and maintainability and sustainability assessments. These documents follow the projects through completion and create an accurate legacy facility information database. It's critical, right? It's going back to the red lines that we don't have before. So all of our successors will have that information to work off. And we're exploring cost-effective computerized maintenance management systems that will serve our district in the most effective manner. And what that means is we're not going to gold plate a CMMS. We're going to right size that selection of software. And there are many on the market, I'm here to tell you. And there are more that are significantly more expensive than others. So we are going to be looking at the most cost-effective candidate possible. And of course, Bo will be a partner in that. That's all I have. That is my last slide. Any questions, please?
That's all.
That's all I have. I'm sorry, it was dense. I apologize.
Very good.
Oh. Well, I don't really have a question, but I just have a comment that I really appreciate that you started with safety first and talking about your team. And I think that says a lot. And then I just running across words that I really like being proactive about not just reactive, but preventative maintenance, and words like systems and management. It's just, and they're not empty words. You really fill them in and explain how you're looking at this. And I just think it creates a picture of a sustainable facilities system, which is what we really need. The other comment I have is that I also appreciate that you talk about the threats and the risks and the sort of negatives that you're working with as well, so that we move forward with our eyes open as to what we really have to be doing with this. So all of those things I appreciate very much. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that.
I'd just second those comments. This is a very ambitious work plan that you had set out for yourself, and I think you should be proud of yourself and your team for how all the things that you've accomplished, and you know, especially considering the limitations that we face in terms of just what our existing facilities are and what our funding is, and all of those challenges. So thank you for it's just comforting to see that this is a plan is coming together, you know, and the idea that, you know, we're not just going to do a repair and then nobody, you know, there's no record of it. There's no, you know, to know, okay, here's what we've done in the science labs, you know, here's what we've done in the ag buildings, here's what's, you know, here's what we bought, and here's when it was installed, and here's the service manual for it. And just to feel like that kind of systematic thinking is starting to be put into place, and how that will benefit everybody in the future. It's just fantastic. So it, you know, in some ways, you know, you can say it's not rocket science, but it, you know, it kind of is, because it's, you know, if you're not doing it, it's, you know, it needs to be done. And so I think it's fantastic. And I just really appreciate the vigor with which you have attacked your assignment. And also thanks to Winnaha. I mean, I know that they've been a really good partner for you guys. And anyway, this is very heartening. Thank you.
Well, thank you for saying that. Appreciate that very much. And I'll pass along your accolades to my colleagues and collaborators as well, because to your point as well, you know, I can't stand here and tell you about the victories and about the successes without their collaboration and support.
Of course, yeah, absolutely. But you've got to motivate people to do that too. So obviously you've motivated people. They've stayed, and they, you know, they've done the work, and so there's, you know, there's a leadership component in that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sir.
I'll just say, serving on the safety committee and facility committee, I couldn't agree more than the leadership and the people that are on those committees, and their enthusiasm and willingness to get to work, and a commitment to, well, even reorganizing the committees just a little bit to get things done. It's great to have these plans, but to actually have a punch list that, okay, click, we're getting this done. We're moving in the right direction. Just people have to realize sometimes it's going to be very slow at times, And we're not going to be able to do things in the order that some people would like to see them done because of oftentimes constraints outside of our control, suppliers, and digging in the ground and finding, well, nobody told me that was going to be there. And I know that happens all the time during construction, but like I said, some of these buildings are pretty old, and you start digging either in the ground or through walls, and you get surprises. And so appreciate all your efforts, and I agree with what Director Johnson said. You know, the plan, you know, it's good. It seems like a coherent, well thought out, and you mentioned a plan to get this done and try to do it right. And the good news, bad news is over the last several years, we've had some really hardworking people with very creative ideas on how to use duct tape and WD-40. And they've kept things glued together for this long time, but now it's time, you know, that we can't do that anymore. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks.
I don't have anything to share that wasn't already said.
I'd like to share one thing, if I may, and that is about the word investment. So certainly, I think you're hearing tonight about Director Santos' investment in us, but we also are on a path for investing in the future. And I know that you have mentioned at times about what do we think our future will be for the next capital levy or perhaps a bond. And one thing that we're working very hard with and using Mike's leadership to guide us is that you don't know where you're starting until you have an appropriate assessment. And an assessment is an investment. And I want to let you know that we're looking under every stone for grant money that's available right at OSPI for building assessments. But we want to make sure we get the quality assessment we need so that you do it once. And of course, you can look around our campuses and probably make judgments about what you might fix first. But one thing Director Santos is very sure about is that there are internals to these buildings. There are externals that we might think we see, but when you start investigating just how buildings are put together, he talked about seismic issues. That's going to be critical for us, as well as things like safety assessments and what type of security do we want to have our campuses be assessed at. So I thank you for that and bringing us along that path. I think people are eager in our school district to move forward with facilities, and it's going to be a road of patience right now while we get the assessments so that we can make good decisions.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. I think with that, that's going to bring us to our superintendent report.
Okay, well, I'd like to start tonight with some very exciting news. It is fresh off the press. I received a phone call this afternoon from Ned Flater, our CTE director. And you know, Ned, I've heard enthusiasm from your voice, but this afternoon, it was truly enthusiastic with a capital E. This is the text from Capital Budget Bill 2089 by Representatives Theringer and Arbarno on page 115. Career and Technical Education Projects, SQUIM School District CTE Center of Excellence, Phase 1 has been recommended for funding at $4.9 million. I would like to thank Director Flater. We, after the day on the Hill, recognized that there might be movement toward this. And Director Flater, along with the CTE committee that we have had working, has worked so hard to make sure that this idea did not die and that we were really going back to the plan, because of course it was a $15 million plan last year, how could we get it down to a place that would be more attractive to actually receive funding? And the small committee that has been working on this did it. Now, this is not in stone. There will be conference with the Senate regarding projects for local community projects funding. I would like to say that Representative Theringer has come through for us, absolutely. We have great optimism about this as a forward-moving project, but we will have to wait and see what the final projects are. But even with that said, this is absolutely, the word heartening was used today. I would say that's exactly what the energy was around our conversation, certainly. And thank you to all of the hands and the minds that went into our CTE building plan last year, and to those who helped to refine it. Well, this is quite an excellent news.
Yay!
Okay. Other exciting news, I'd like to let you know that you did not hear this in Director Santos' report directly, but he worked with Ned to make sure we had an air compressor, of course, over at our CTE center. And so that's a project that, once again, grant money has helped us with significantly. I'd like to let you know that we have continued with our Indian Ed grant and making sure that we're having very strong collaboration. And I had the opportunity to go to Port Angeles and meet with Carmen, who is their tribal liaison, to hear more about how they put in effect MOUs and what type of energy they have around certain projects. And that was very enlightening. And she is such a passionate tribal liaison. I would say that our Indian Ed Grant parent meeting that we had recently was also that same type of energy. Donna Hudson's leading that out of teaching and learning. And then Principal Lunt and myself were invited as guests to Intertribal Song and Dance Evening on Friday, which is an invite-only opportunity, and it was absolutely marvelous. Amazing talent, wonderful traditions were shared, and just very passionate and exciting relationships between Yelwa, Jamestown, and Port Gamble. So that was an honor for us to be able to attend. I'd like to let you know that our tech refresh focus group continues to meet. There will be another meeting of that group tomorrow. If you do know, the survey that we have put out is asking questions on 3 levels. Budgetary questions, of course, related to reductions that we might have to see in our future. Also looking into technology and what do people have as priorities for technology, and kind of asking more about how is it used at home and what do parents have as interests around technology use and us giving devices out at school. And then, of course, around later start times and the appetite for that in our community, or concerns that are coming from it. So we're starting to see that we're getting results back, and it will still be open for another week. So we want to ask people to please be sure to go in and look at that. It will be real important that we have that information for our tech focus group. Also, I'd like to let you know that we have seen that there have been some questions about our academic calendar that we had brought to the school board and you approved. And I just would like to let you know that we did a 10-year look back, and over 10 years, we've had 5 start days before Labor Day, and we've had 5 start days after Labor Day. So we're running 50-50 with this decision for next year. I do think it's important to let you know about starting in August. I do think that there are advantages to that, but a lot of that decision also is looking at the calendar as a whole. But some of the benefits are that you have AP courses, for instance, in our schools where we're running AP courses and their tests are coming up in May. The earlier you can get rolling with getting those preparations done, the better. I do have to say that I think when you start in August, we have many students who aren't necessarily having summer vacation that is out on trips. A lot of people need to access daycare, and so they are appreciative that we're getting rolling. And we also know about the learning loss, having students back as soon as possible once they've been out since June 15th. That seems to make a lot of sense to us as well. But the calendar is put together by a calendar committee in our school district. I wanted you to know that. That is actually a committee that has multiple representatives on it, teachers, administrators, paraeducators, and human resources. So we try to have a diverse group that's talking about calendar development. I'd like to also let you know that I did attend the EDC, Economic Development Council Gala that was held last week, actually. And we want to stay connected with EDC because when we think about CTE and the development of this grant, for instance, and the potential there, we are trying to meet workforce needs. And so making sure that we're staying in touch, understand what our Clallam County area needs for a region, for a workforce, that's very important. The leadership in EDC is so strong, and recently the Peninsula College president, Susie Ames, was named as the chairman for the board for EDC. So we want to keep those strong connections going, and it was a great event. And then I would like to speak to visiting Shipley Center. I was able to do that on Valentine's Day with a small group, and there were a lot of questions about the school and things they were interested in knowing that could be answered and shared and invited so that people can come into our buildings. We actually have a group of student representatives right now who is working hard to plan tours for March, community building tours related to all the facilities talk that you've already heard tonight. So we have a lot going on around that, but I'd also like to speak about what's going on at our schools. Helen Haller had attendance recognition assemblies, and I know that a couple of you were able to come out. And then we had quite a district-wide endeavor with the Super Bowl. And I see Jen Lopez here right now. Grey Wolf really kicked it off, but the competition was fierce at every campus that participated. And there were potlucks and photographs, and it was quite a time and a good time that was had by all. So thank you. We did have Ed Committee meet, and I didn't know if anybody on the board would like to speak to the subjects at Ed Committee and share.
So Education Committee, we were reviewing actually our comprehensive sexual education plan. So there was some, obviously it's one of those hot button topics. So you want to make sure that you look at everything that's available. One of the things that I was pleased with is the controls that they have regarding the material. So I think that was a positive thing, the material, and how it's being presented is meeting the standards without getting, I think, too far into the weeds and creating controversy, but yet still making sure that as a priority that our families know there is additional information out there for students and families so they can access that without having to, maybe turn some families off from participating because it's all in a lump thing. So we have a basic that we can do for everyone, and then there's additional material for people that want them. And to me, I thought that was a good compromise in our comprehensive sexual education.
And I guess I would just add that I thought it was really impressive, the care and the thought that goes into the curriculum development for sex education, and that it's very age appropriate, grade appropriate, selective, not just taking a curriculum package and adopting it, but rather being very selective and being true to the values of our community and thinking about how this will fit at the appropriate grade level. And I just saw a lot of care and a lot of attention being paid to that, which was impressive.
I do have to say, I was unaware that it is not mandatory taught until the 5th grade, and that is when we do it. So I think a lot of the fear, I think, comes from those elementary age children, where, you know, at Grey Wolf, there's not even a danger of a book open up in front of them, right? It's not even brought over there. But as you go to our older kids, and as Marlon said, very age appropriate, all the material, and a very easy way for parents to opt out if they're still uncomfortable with it. So when we talked about it, there would be an easy way for parents to go onto the district website, review the material, and then opt out if they decide to, although I don't think we'll get a lot of opt-outs because of the way that it was handled. So.
Thank you. And then finally, I just wanted to let you know that as some of you have attended, I am going from building to building to share the finance PowerPoint that we reviewed at our study session, to gather any questions from staff, discuss those questions right there, and make sure that we move through the slides, not belabor it, but make sure people are seeing the concerns that we have ahead around finances, and be at people's campuses to be able to talk directly.
All right. And that's going to bring us to our board business. We have a second reading and approval of policy 2410, the high school graduation requirements. We have a motion.
Approve policy 2410, high school graduation requirements.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Well, first, do we have an advisory vote?
No.
No.
Okay. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed? All right, motion passes. Next, second reading and approval of policy 5271, reporting improper governmental action, whistleblower protection. We have a motion.
I move that we approve the second reading and approve policy 5271, whistleblower protection for reporting improper governmental action.
A second.
Any discussion? We have an advisory vote.
No.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes. That's going to bring us to 9.03, future bond levy, EPO election results review and discussion. Superintendent Nichols, are you going to kick us off on this one?
Yes, thank you. So as I alluded to earlier, it is a season where I would like to inform the board that our EP&O levy and our capital projects levy will both be up December 31st, 2025. Okay, so looking ahead, we have approximately 1 year before a February election, and of course less time if we would be interested in moving forward with a November election. What would be important to know is that the EP&O levy is designed to fund basic education that is either A, not funded through our formula. Its true purpose is to be an enrichment levy to bring extra opportunities to students. Right now in our school district, the lion's share of our levy is being utilized for personnel. Okay, so that would be one discussion. The bond or capital projects levy, when you heard Director Santos's discussion about facilities assessments, our whole goal is to be able to have strong information for you to be able to make a decision about what type of structure you might be interested in for a future capital projects levy or a bond. But being 1 year out from a February election, for instance, we know that we need to hustle and we need to make sure that it's done very well. And that's why we are talking with a firm of a caliber like we are. we recognize that grant money from OSPI would likely be able to help us to engage a company like this. It's really important to understand, though, what Washington State is facing around bond issues. If you saw the information that I included, passing a bond is a challenge, but I think what is happening in communities that are passing bonds, they're having campaigns that are very clear about what the path is for the future of the district. So looking out 15, 20, some districts are choosing to look out 25 or 30 years. We want to be cautious because, of course, looking out 30 years is a challenge, but we have started, I've interviewed multiple demographers. So we have enrollment census data that would be coming in, and then we'll also be doing the assessment side with the buildings. So I'd love to open this conversation about what might be on your minds, about directions you're interested in us moving, and information you would need.
For the timing for those, or you just in general?
In general. In general.
Both of these are, so if I remember, if I understood you correctly, both of these are expiring at the same time. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, EP&O as in capital projects.
Correct.
And they end at calendar year? End of calendar year 2025 or end of school year?
December 2025.
December 2025, okay. So it could actually cut off right in the middle of the school year.
And the dates we can vote, the one, we just had the February date. I know some school districts go to April, but we could also vote in November of
24.
24.
Mm-hmm.
And my understanding is we can only hold 2 votes in a calendar year. Like it's February. If it doesn't pass in February, we have it in April, but we wouldn't have another opportunity until the following year to vote. Does that sound right?
I need to check on that part. If that is the case, we would just have to manage the calendar years being bridged.
In a previous meeting I was at just before I came here, they were all impressed with Tacoma because they passed a bond at 68%. And they talked about this wonderful fold-out flyer they had to send that they sent to everybody. So I asked for somebody to send me a picture or a copy of it just to put in the files in case we need it one of these days. So It is possible that passing bonds are very, very rare because of the 60% threshold. Most of the bonds are favored most by 50% or more of the population, but they don't get to the 60%. So, whereas the levies, the capital projects levy and the EP&O levy, that's at 50%.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I have a couple questions about timing. Is it expected or required that we would necessarily put both levies up at the same time? I mean, for example, would it be possible to put the EP&O levy on in November? Because I think we have a pretty clear idea of what that is that we need, and then maybe do the bond separately in February if we don't feel like we're ready to put the bond on. I mean, obviously a lot more people are going to be voting in November. And I don't know how the analysis goes on that, if that's usually a good idea for school districts or not a good idea, if people prefer to have, because is it 60% of just the actual people who vote, or is it 60% of, do you have to get over some threshold from who voted last time? I know sometimes there are those other considerations as well.
there is something.
There is a validation requirement.
Right.
So it is 60% of those who vote, but you have to be sure that your vote is validated by the fact that you have a particular percentage of the previous election.
General.
So there is analysis about this, and we absolutely could bring in specialist that we work with who does go through this analysis. Both Darlene and myself this year have been to a couple of seminars about this, learning what it is going to take and what the forecasts are for success in November versus February. We also want to leave ourselves the opportunity, as Larry was alluding to, that we have opportunity if you were to run into a situation where you had a failure, you've got another chance moving forward. But I certainly would say, I hope that we would go into this knowing that we'd be analyzing what hard work it will take, what communications it's going to take, what advanced preparations, so that we're having our community understand exactly what we're asking for and support it.
Are we thinking about
Go ahead.
possible capital, another capital levy, or are we just thinking EP&O levy and bond?
Well, the benefit of a bond, of course, is that you receive all of your funding up front. So if you are interested in actually building a school or having a significant renovation, you want to have that flexibility of a bond. If we have building assessments and they come back and indicate to us that we would have more flexibility with a building, for instance, we could probably think about capital projects levies to keep us alive. But the fact of the matter is, what we're detecting right now in the capital projects levy is we have issues that we have staff begging us to rectify, but you can't rectify it with the way our buildings are built. We just don't have the capacity to do that.
Like the wiring issues and that kind of thing.
Yes.
So we really need to start from the ground up.
Seems, but we'll let the assessments do the talking.
When do we expect that we'll have received those assessments? Do we have a
It takes a while. So we have not contracted the entity yet because we're still talking and we need to make sure that we can afford it. And then once we get them engaged, depending on the scope that we agree to, they would need multiple months to get that done. But we're thinking about how to be strategic in that so that we get rolling results instead of waiting for everything in one basket. Start getting back the results and start with the schools that you know are going to have the most significant issues.
Sounds good.
A couple of things came to mind to me on this that I possibly would like to get some answers on. One, I talked with Representative Theringer on Monday about this, and he did talk about, based on the design of the building, the route you're going forward, and the construction type, and he described some different ways of constructing it, that if you go that path, you can get more matching funds from the state. And I think that is something that we should pursue, just to be good fiscal stewards and making sure that we're maximizing the matching opportunities. Going through that, and I know, obviously it has to be part of the analysis that's done based on, because that's going to affect the ask for the bond amount if we're going to bond. I think that so I certainly would like to find out how that would potentially impact our proposal. It would seem that the February date would seems like that would be, it would have to be by February for sure, if not potentially even sooner for one or both, but February would be kind of, and when I say February, obviously February 2025. And I do see value in having our capital projects levy sort of turn into, you're thinking that one's gonna drop off, but then thinking about how the bond, if we go through out of a bond, would start based on the capital projects levy dropping off, because that does keep potentially a more consistent and expected tax rate for our community members that will be impacted. That, not saying it would necessarily be the exact same, but potentially could keep things consistent. And I know having consistent tax rates sometimes can help folks. But so just seeing how that transition would work would be some information that I would find helpful. But I am supportive of going the path of a bond, and I think obviously the EP&O levy, we have to have the EP&O levy. There's no question on that. Just we need to look at what the amounts are going to be to meet all of our expenses.
Well, thank you for that. And I would like you to know that thus far, Director Santos and I have been trying to speak with folks who have been through this before. And so we have spoken with Port Angeles to understand their pathway with their capital projects levy and their facilities plan. To Director Pickens' point about how you structure that so that you are recouping the most possible construction assistance financially. We are doing that as well. And as far as transitioning, we would be looking that we would transition and hopefully be just simply replacing EP&O and bond. The rate at which I agree with Director Pickens, consistency will be important, but our assessments coming back from facilities will help us to guide those choices and make the priority decisions we're going to have to.
Are we looking at getting an outside consultant when they do that demographics? They're going to, the whole point of that data collection is going to give us an idea of a target dollar amount for a bond of what the community is, I guess, open to, as opposed to, who's our demographics that's reaching out, that's supportive and stuff like that. So we're doing this as, I feel like in the past, it's been kind of a hoorah, let's pass a bond with not as much, I guess, demographic research to support what we're going after. And so it sounds like this time we're really taking that, I guess, to that next level, which I think is important in order to get it passed. We do have to invest in the right demographic information so that we can get the right bond passed.
We absolutely are intending to do just that. So us looking into the enrollment census so we know what our future looks like to the degree you can know it. From what I understand and in speaking with the demographers, a 10-year outlook is one that feels relatively accurate. 15 years is something that can be generally worthwhile to do. When you push it beyond 20 years, you probably are pushing. As far as facilities assessments, though, we recognize that we have to determine what types of educational spaces we're also interested in. So it's not just assessing what you have, it's also assessing what is going to be needed for a solid educational environment moving into a future for jobs that we don't even know what they're going to be. So there are a lot of questions, and it will take a lot of homework before we come out, and we will be putting together advisory group for this, and we will be having an application that would be active soon to be a part of it. What I would appreciate, though, is getting more information after the board's had a chance to think about this, and me bring back some of this information you've asked for, Director Pickens, and then we can make some more firm decisions.
I think one of the things we need to look at, there's a lot of confusion out there about levy rates versus assessment. In other words, what the rate is per $1,000 assessed evaluation and how much money I'm paying out of pocket. Because if you notice, our EP&O levy has gone down quite significantly, the rate, but my money that I got to pull out of my pocket to give to the school district has gone up because my house has gone up in value. And we are fortunate enough to have a school district where the assessed evaluation went up quite a bit in the last few years, which means the levy rate went down because we can't, I think it was $15 million levy, and that's all we can collect, $15 million. If the assessed evaluation rate goes up, the assessed evaluation goes up, the rate goes down, so we just only collect $15 million. And my understanding is that's one of the reasons we're kind of in the position we are now, because costs have gone up faster than we anticipated. You know, and we can't, is there a way to bump up levy rates or do them for only 2 years and then do them again? Or I don't know what the best strategy is.
Account for inflation.
Account for inflation of property valuation and cost of material, you know, all those things you listed on the budget, insurance, materials, supplies, salaries, everything goes up.
So currently, we have an EP&O levy, which is for learning. And that levy is coming in at a bit over $7 million this year. You are right. The rate has gone down from what we had originally planned for back in 2021. We thought we'd be coming in at about $1.25. Now we're down to 97 cents. But of course, because of the escalation of the value of homes, there is the need to collect less per thousand. Our expenses have gone up, and our levy right now, our EP&O levy, is being used for the majority of personnel. And so we want to get back to a place where we do have the funds for the enrichment side of the levy. And when I say enrichment, it's not for frills. It's for things that we expect for our students, like athletic programs, theater programs, being able to have, if you have a science program that is in part funded through the formula, then you'd want to have the essentials coming along and the enrichment side that teachers so want to do with their students. So we've got to find the structure that is going to allow us to be nimble. So I think what would be important is for us to bring our consultant that works with us and has for years and have him present to you all about the different levy structures that are possible.
Yeah, great.
And then that understanding needs to be more clearly expressed or communicated to the voting public. Because like I said, there's a lot of confusion. My taxes are going up. What do you mean?
There's one thing I would like to share, and that is that if you look at your taxation, just look at all of the different ways that taxation comes out for schools, you will see that there are more than one taxation for schools. Not all of that is coming to SQUIM school directly. We have school districts like Seattle that are considered to have valuation poor districts or land poor districts that need to have some further assistance. And some of that money is floating to other places. So we need to get very clear on what funding is actually coming to SQUIM, what we're being able to take advantage of regarding that, and if our rates are going to work for what we want for our students here. So we've got a lot of decisions to make moving forward, and we're going to need the help of the community to do it. So we'll be forming these advisory groups, and I hope folks out in the community who are interested could look for the applications.
Okay. Anything else on that? All right. And I believe that's going to conclude our business. And we are going to, hold on. We're going to be going into recess for approximately 30 minutes to discuss with legal counsel litigation or potential litigation. So we'll go ahead and go into recess now or shortly in a few minutes.
Right.